Hey guys, how's everybody doing? I'm just going to kind of let everybody file in here for a minute, so we're going to let the music play for a second. Can you guys hear me okay in the chat? Right on. Just going to let a few more people file in before we start up. Hey guys. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing started. So, I know I'm a little bit early. I usually come in Monday evenings, but we got holiday plans today, so I just kind of wanted to get this, make sure I got one in because I skipped it last week. So hopefully everybody's having a nice holiday. Merry Christmas to you guys. Happy holidays, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all that good stuff. So today's topic, just kind of wanted to answer some questions. We had a lot of questions from the last couple videos because, of course, I missed the last live stream. So had a bunch of questions from the last couple videos and wanted to kind of answer some of those. And then kind of, thanks a lot, Adam Woods. Appreciate it, man. Merry Christmas to you too. Just kind of wanted to address some topics too. Okay. You know, in my last couple videos, and actually pretty much in all of my videos, I hope you guys know that, you know, and I try to stress it in most of my videos when I'm videoing too, is that I don't know everything. Okay. I'm just a technician, just like you guys. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned from a lot of my mistakes. But I'm still learning every day. There's new stuff, you know, new things. There's things that I realize that I do wrong. That's taken me a while to realize that. You know, and it also, there's multiple ways to do things too. So everybody kind of has an opinion and, you know, everybody has their own way of handling things. So the one thing that I kind of wanted to address, and it's been brought up a bunch lately, is electrical terminologies and electrical mistakes. Okay. I do admit, you know, in some of my videos, it does come up to me, get brought up to me that I've made mistakes, you know, electrically. You have to understand something. A lot of my videos are edited down. So, you know, I can't sit there and film the entire thing because I have to work too. So, you know, a lot of times I cut certain things out and I realize I probably shouldn't have cut. You know, for instance, it was brought up to my attention that I dove into an electrical circuit without verifying that the power was off. When in fact I did verify, it's just that I didn't get it on video. Okay. So, you know, I get it. Especially, you know, because I realize that there's a lot of new people to the trade that watch these videos, and I do want to make sure I'm setting a good example. But I can promise you guys that I am being extremely safe when I do stuff. And a lot of times, if you think that I missed something, a lot of times it's just not in the video. Sometimes I will even, you know, diagnose something a little bit before I even turn the camera on. Okay, so just know that, you know, I am being safe. Merry Christmas to everybody that's coming in. I see you guys filing in the chat here right now. We're just kind of getting started, just talking about some things that were brought up in the chats in my last couple videos. So kind of let you guys keep filing in here. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? For those of you, I don't know if there's anybody new in here right now that's watching, just kind of give you a little context as to what's going on. So my channel name is HVACR Videos, obviously. I upload videos Mondays and Fridays, okay, usually early in the morning. And then I usually do a live stream on Monday evening to answer all the questions from the previous couple videos, okay? So last week I missed the live stream due to holiday stuff. And then today I'm actually doing my live stream early. Usually my live streams start at 5 p.m. Monday Pacific time, but I'm rolling it in early because we've got a big family Christmas thing today. So we started out a little bit just talking about some electrical mistakes that I had made in the last couple videos. And I was just explaining to everybody that, you know, some of those mistakes are true mistakes, but then some of them are things that you guys just don't see because I don't film necessarily everything when I'm, you know, shooting my videos. Okay. So, um, terminologies, you know, I do make electrical terminology mistakes all the time. My biggest one that it gets pointed out to me and I realize I make it all the time is on a 208-volt circuit when I realize, or when I refer to the common terminal as the neutral. I constantly do that. And that's just something I cannot get that on my head for some reason. I constantly do that. And I think it comes from working on walk-in freezers with defrost clocks, and the common terminal is usually the end terminal. So that really throws me off, and I constantly call it the neutral terminal when in fact it's not actually a neutral. So, you know, also understand that all of us guys that make videos on YouTube, you know, we don't know everything. Okay, it's to your guys's benefit to fact check what you see, to read up, to you know, investigate things. Don't always assume just because you see some guy that has a lot of subscribers that he's always right. Okay, because I am not always right. I guarantee you that. I make mistakes all the time, every day to this day. The important thing is if you can learn from your mistakes, and I try. So, all right. So, you know, just want to point that out, you know, that we are always learning, and it's important too that you stay humble, because it'll kick you in the ass if you don't. You'll get your ass handed to you by someone. You know, I've made mistakes before where I've gotten cocky or something like that and said, you know, oh no, I know I'm right, and then turns out I was wrong. Um, I've had apprentice technicians, not an apprentice. I had a new guy that he works with me right now, and I made a big mistake, and he was trying to be polite and tell me that I made the mistake, and I was like, no, I didn't, no, I didn't, and then I realized that I did. You know, so it happens. All right. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? See more and more you're filing in right now. Oh, right on. Yeah, it's interesting because this isn't my normal time to do this live stream for the guys that are just coming in. I usually do them at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and I'm just kind of getting this one done early because of holiday stuff. So, a couple other things I want to cover. In my videos, there's been a kind of a common thing going on right now. For those of you that work in restaurants and deal with restaurant refrigeration, I am not. It's funny. I find it comical, but I am not going to acknowledge the locations. I know everybody's always trying to guess where I'm working at. Even if you guess right, I'm not going to acknowledge that it's right. Okay, guys, I have to protect my customers, and I have to protect myself. So I'm not going to divulge, you know, the names of the locations that I'm working in my videos. Okay. Not that I'm doing anything wrong. I am always 100% on the up and up with my customers. And I make sure that if I feel like something took me too long because I spent extra time filming or something like that, I will never bill my customers for that. My customers are too important to me to screw that up. And the relationships that I built with them are very, very important. So, you know, but just keep that in mind. I know you guys are, you know, not trying to be rude or anything, but people are just asking, oh, is this or is this that? And I'm not going to tell you guys where the locations are. And for those of you that do know, because it's, you know, some of you that work in these places can obviously tell where I'm working at. I'd appreciate it if you guys kind of just keep that to yourselves. Most of the time, if I see them in the comments, I actually delete the comments, and I'm not upset. I just prefer that, you know, the restaurants don't be in my, you know, comments. I just don't want people knowing and stuff. And Merry Christmas, everybody. Appreciate it. Just kind of looking through the chat here right now. Okay. Upper level HVAC. I'm going to answer a question real quick. You asked, what was the start of my HVAC career like? Schooling, first job. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, I started in this trade when I was a little kid. I actually work for my, actually I work with my dad now, but I started working for my dad as a little kid. Whenever I was off school, you know, whenever I was on vacation or anything like that, and especially in the summers, I would work with them. My mom and my dad lived in, you know, they were divorced and lived separately. So my dad would pick me up oftentimes right after school, and then I would go do service calls with him on the way home, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I kind of grew up in the trade. It's funny though, because I didn't want anything to do with the trade. I hated it. I hated the heat. I hated just seemed like it was a pain in the butt to have to climb onto the roof all the time, but here I am now and I love it. So I officially started thank you very much, Rehab Junkie. I officially started in 2002 was when it was official that I actually came to work for my dad at the time. And it's just been a long ride ever since. We have since partnered up, and now I'm part owner in the company. He's part owner. He's not really involved in the service work anymore. I did go to trade school. I went to the local community college, Mount San Antonio Community College here in Walnut, California. It's about 45 minutes from my house. Took their HVAC program, and then at the same time, I was still learning, and I just kind of got a good mix of it. I spread out the HVAC program over a couple of years. Just went to night school, took 2-3 classes at a time. That way, I could work at the same time. It's been a lot of years. So lots of mistakes made. Learned from a lot of mistakes. So, all right. Let me see. I'm just mixing up in here. Hopefully I answered that question okay for you guys. So just to reiterate, I'm not going to divulge the restaurant locations that I'm working at. Like I said, I had a really good question in my chat a little while ago about the recent ice machine video that I did. And forgive me, I don't have your name written down, but it was a good question in there. And they asked me, do I always use a certain size liquid line filter dryer? Do I upsize the filter dryer? Do I use the factory dryer? I always try to go back with the factory dryer if at all possible. There is times where I need to make a field repair and I don't have the factory dryer on me at the right time. But if I end up having to order factory parts like expansion valves and whatnot, I will try to put the factory parts back in and order them with it. But I do carry aftermarket filter dryers on my truck. One of the more important things that you want to understand, especially when you're working on ice machines, is they are critically charged. And that means that they have to have a specific amount of refrigerant in them to work correctly. Critically charged systems, especially when they're smaller charges, sometimes you get to an ice machine that may only hold, less than a pound of refrigerant. It's very critical that you put the exact components back in that system and that you don't change anything. So if I went with a bigger filter dryer on a critically charged ice machine, potentially the system could be undercharged because we have more volume in that dryer for the refrigerant to sit. There's all kinds of things. So that's why you try to go back with the components that belong inside there, okay? There is some logic you can do in your head too. Just because it's a factory liquid dryer, it may still be a 32 cubic inch dryer, okay? Most liquid line filter dryers are rated in cubic inches. So you may be able to look at the dryer and say, okay, that's a 32-inch cubic inch dryer. Some Hoshizakis will come with that. And if I can't get the factory dryer, I can make sure that I put in a 32 cubic inch aftermarket dryer in the system. Okay. Now, on some of the bigger machines, I'm not so worried about it. Some of the machines that might hold 9-10 pounds of gas, I'm not going to be too much worried about going a couple cubic inches over the dryer size. So if we get on a bigger Hoshizaki ice machine, I might put a 16.3 or an 083, something like that. Okay. So, it's just important to understand what you're working on. Try to go back in with the factory parts. And that's kind of the way that I go with everything. I try to go back into the machines with the factory parts as much as possible. So for those of you guys that are just coming in, I'm just kind of answering some questions from the last couple videos. Okay. Just kind of going over a few things. Hello to everybody. Thank you guys very much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Okay. For those of you that are new, thanks for coming in, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to keep going. All right. Wow, guys, thank you so very much. It's not expected that you guys do these super chats and different things, but I really appreciate it. Okay. Ryan Leary, yes, there is wiggle room on charge, especially when you get into the bigger ones. Okay. But when you get, I honestly don't work on a lot of small ice machines. Ryan, that was you, wasn't it? That showed me there was a picture of a tiny little under counter Hoshizaki ice machine on a residential system. Wasn't that you that posted that on social media? That would be an instance where I would make sure I would go back in with the exact factory parts. Okay. If you get into these very, very small under counter ice machines, especially the residential series. Yeah. Yeah. So especially the residential lines on something like that, you need to make sure you go back in with the correct size, or you need to become a field engineer and adjust the refrigerant charge on the spot. Okay. I don't suggest people doing that, but try to stick with what belongs in those things unless you really, really know what you're doing. Okay. So always be cautious about that. Oh, right on. Thank you very much, Daniel. I really appreciated it, man. Um, okay, so so this is actually a really good point. I'm just kind of going through, I got like a little list of questions right here, guys, that people have sent me and I thought were more important. Um, replacing parts due to ease. And what I mean by that, for instance, on my recent video where I had bad expansion valves, someone brought to my attention that when they work on Hoshizaki ice machines and they have to remove the charge, that a lot of times they'll go in and change the hot gas valve. Okay, I agree with that and I don't agree with that. And I'm going to tell you why. Um, I too will do the same thing in certain instances. And when I say I don't agree with that, I mean that you have to evaluate the situation you're in. So, for example, I had a Hoshizaki ice machine that had bad expansion valves, and someone brought up in my comments that they typically will change the hot gas valve also at the same time. And the reason why he does that is not necessarily a sales thing, but if you work on the Hoshizaki ice machines a lot, one of the parts that fails quite often is a hot gas valve. They'll get stuck open. Now, in my opinion, the reason why they get stuck open is typically because people did not follow the proper refrigeration practices when they were installing components in the system. Okay. And it is, if you know that the system hasn't been worked on correctly, if you know that you've had problems with contamination in it, then I would agree with that. Okay. But I would say that if we follow the proper refrigeration practices, we shouldn't have to worry about situations like that because the hot gas valves typically don't go bad unless something gets stuck in them. And the only way for something to get stuck in them is if someone didn't follow, proper practices when they were brazing in a dryer, if they weren't, if they were going crazy, if they weren't purging nitrogen. Now, I will also say purging nitrogen on an ice machine is extremely difficult. Okay. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't do it most of the time because there's so many valves in those ice machines and there's so many little crevices and places that it's not just a single pass like you're working on a simple residential air conditioning system where there's nothing in line. Okay. On an ice machine, you've got all kinds of valves. You've got hot gas valves. You've got headmasters up on the roof. You've got liquid line solenoid valves. You've got a bunch of different valves, and it's not necessarily easy to get all of those open. And the nitrogen won't necessarily sweep through the entire system in a nice, even flow. Okay. I'm not saying that it's a horrible thing to use nitrogen. I'm just saying it's kind of difficult when you get into these complex ice machines to purge with nitrogen. So I'm admitting right now that I'm not always going to purge with nitrogen when I'm working on an ice machine. Okay. Because it just creates havoc for me. That's my personal preference. I'm not the end all be all, you know, answer for that. Okay. I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes, but that's just my personal preference. Okay. So there's a lot that goes to, or a lot that goes into brazing. And if you know how to braze properly, if you're not overheating systems, you can get away with some things. Again, I want to be cautious about that, guys, because I don't want to teach you guys the incorrect things. I'm just saying there's a time and place for following certain practices, and there's a time that doesn't work. Okay. On the same instance, again, I always think that you should, use proper vacuuming practices, that you should use all the fancy hoses and micron gauges and all this different stuff. But there's also a place and a time for that. Sometimes when you're working on small self-contained regions, you're not going to be able to get all that fancy stuff on there. And guess what? Sometimes it's not practical to put vacuum core removal tools on a small self-contained reach. And sometimes there's no room in there. And sometimes you just have to vacuum down through your manifold. I know that's sacrilege. Everybody's going to crucify me for that. But sometimes, you just got to do what you got to do. I always want to try to use vacuum core removal tools, Appion Mega Flow hoses, or True Blue hoses, or whatever, whenever I can. But there's just sometimes that it's not practical. Okay. So just understand that's my opinion. So that's the Total Tech. He brought up a good point. He says, first learn the trade, then learn the tricks. That's true. Okay. It's always important to understand why we're vacuuming down a system the way that we should be doing it, using vacuum core removal tools and, hoses without a manifold and different things. But again, sometimes it's just not practical. So to each their own, not crucifying anybody. I'm not, the greatest tech in the world. So, all right. Okay. Another really good point that was brought up to me is people talking about repairing parts. Okay. Personally, I don't and when I say repairing parts, for instance, one of my videos where I think it's called walk-in freezer electric defrost explained or something like that. I think that was the title of my video. And I had a couple people in there saying, why didn't I pull out the circuit board and repair the relay on the defrost clock? Okay. I understand what people are asking me about that. And what they're saying is to take the printed circuit board, unsolder the little black relay from the printed circuit board, and then replace the relay. If you do that, great. You know, that's cool for you. For my business, that doesn't work. And I'm going to explain to you why. My customers expect me to warranty the parts that I install. And I have told my customers that I will honor factory manufacturer's warranties. So if I buy a defrost clock and they warranty it for 1 year after purchase, then I'm going to warranty that part for 1 year after purchase. And I will typically give them about 90 days labor on it. In order for me to stand behind that part and honor the manufacturer's warranty, I can't repair the part. And when I say I can't unsolder a relay off of a defrost clock, excuse me, and try to repair it, it's just not practical for me. Plus, at the same time, I've got people that work for me, and I can't pay them to try and repair something like a relay on a defrost clock and then have it fail, because then I still have to pay my technician. I still have to pay for the part, and then I have to warranty something too. So it just doesn't work that way. It's just not practical for me to do that. When it comes to like defrost clocks and printed circuit boards. So if a defrost clock goes bad, I'm changing the entire clock. Okay. I'll even go as far as saying on a Graslin defrost clock, I won't change just the module, even though sometimes you can. Like if you have a defrost module on a Graslin clock that's kind of stuck and it's moving kind of slow, you know, I won't change just the module most of the time. Okay. Because a customer doesn't understand that I changed just the module. So the next week when one of the relays fails on that defrost clock and I change just the module, then, you know, they're still going to want me to warranty it. They're going to say, well, you just changed the clock. No, I didn't. I just changed the module on it. And then now the main clock's bad. That doesn't, you know, they don't understand that. So it's not practical for me to do that kind of stuff. You know, I got to think smart as a business person too, and also look out for the customer's best interest. So in my eyes, if I've got a defrost clock that has a bad module on it, and this is just my opinion, I'm not saying not knocking you for doing that if you do, okay? But for me, it's not practical to do that kind of stuff. And it'll end up costing the customer more in the long run, in my opinion, if I try to repair one of those parts versus just replacing the entire clock. The clocks are cheap. It's not a big deal. You know, so, you know, I get a new clock for 70, 60 bucks or something like that. It's no big deal. So I'm not in the business to repair printed circuit boards and on smaller horsepower motors. I'm not in the business to try to pull the motor apart and change bearings. I can understand on a 50 horsepower motor, you know, pulling it apart and servicing it. I get that. Okay. But on these small little things, it's not practical. When the part only costs, you know, 200 bucks or something like that, it's not worth the labor involved to try to pull it apart and change bearings on the motor or something like that. So in my opinion, okay. So I'm going to kind of scroll back here through the comments and see what I missed here, guys, and try to get to some of your questions here. Thanks a lot, guys. Merry Christmas. I really appreciate it. I see all these comments coming in, guys. And for those of you that did super chats, thank you so very much. Okay, guys, I really appreciate that. Okay, so let me go back up in here and see what I missed. All right. Biggest advice, Jacob Harriet asked, the biggest advice for an apprentice in the trade. My best advice to you, Jacob, is be a sponge. Okay. Don't get cocky. Don't get rude. Listen to everything and absorb everything, even the bad advice. Listen to it. Just keep your mouth shut. Let the people tell you, your foreman, whoever it is, let them tell you what's going on. Let them explain to you their methods. Just because you know it's wrong, there could still be some value in what they're teaching you. So let's say, for instance, that, you know, you're the person you're working with, your mentor, whoever you're looking up to, and he says, you know, we're going to change when we change that compressor, we're going to change the expansion valve too. Okay. And then you ask, well, but the expansion valve's not bad. And he's busy, he's working. And this is something that's been asked to me, you know, and sometimes I don't have the time to explain it at the moment. And I may say, look, we're changing the expansion valve. We'll talk about it later. He has a reason, whether or not you think it's right or wrong. Finish out the job, and then ask him after, like, okay, why did we change the expansion valve when we changed that compressor? And he said, well, because it was a burnout. And more than likely, when that compressor grounded out, it contaminated the system. And either the expansion valve got contaminated and or the expansion valve was bad to begin with, and it caused the compressor to go bad. So what I'm saying is just listen to what he has to say, chill out, relax. Even if you think it's wrong, just listen and talk to him. And there's, while people are on a job, when you're working, they're not necessarily going to be able to explain every single thing to you. Okay. So it is going to be partially your responsibility at the end of the day to try to remember what he says and then go home and research the hell out of those things. Go on the internet, go to the HVAC-talk forum, research some things. That's what I used to do when I didn't know the answers to some things. Okay. So be a sponge. That's some really important advice that I could give you. Research. Okay. Just because you clocked out at the end of the day doesn't mean your day is over. To be honest with you, your day probably needs to go on for a couple more hours. When you clocked out and you get in your vehicle and you drive home, or you get to your house, then you probably need to sit down and do some research, pull out your computer and spend an hour or two each night researching some things that you were curious about as the day went on. Okay. The more you learn, the better you'll be, especially when you're an apprentice too. Take the time to get educated properly now, even if it involves going to a nighttime community college or something like that, signing up for supply house courses that they offer, trainings and different things. A lot of manufacturers now, it's a little bit different than when I was coming up in the trade, because the internet really didn't exist too much when I was coming up. It wasn't as accessible and easy. There's so much information available on the internet. If you're working on an ice machine, pretty much every ice machine manufacturer publishes all their training classes on their website. So I'm not saying you shouldn't go to a training class in person, but majority of the time, what they're going to teach you in that training class is available online. So as an apprentice, I think it's your responsibility to go home at the end of the day and research the hell out of the previous day. Just research everything, act like a sponge. When you're working on a job, take pictures of models and serial numbers, take pictures of things that you think are awkward or strange, and then go home and analyze them. Look up models and serial numbers, print out the manuals. You can get it all online. So I think today is a great time to be an apprentice because there's so much information available to you. So I think it's a great time as long as you're willing to put in the effort. Okay, I'm going to go through to the next comment here. CB, you ask if it's possible I could do electrical troubleshooting videos, teach you the process of elimination. Yeah, I definitely can try to do that. I will put that on my list of things to try to remember. Now, one thing I'm going to explain to you guys, if you guys haven't already noticed, okay, there's a lot of information missing from my videos, and there's a reason for that. I do not want my videos to be a resource for DIY people, restaurant owners and homeowners to try to fix their own equipment. That's not what my videos are for. Okay. But at the same time, it's not just because I don't want them to work on their own stuff. It's because I don't want people to hurt themselves. Okay. My videos are tailored towards people that are already in the trade and that have gone through proper schooling and know the basics of electricity and electrical fundamentals. Okay. So you notice I'm not going to tell you exactly in my videos, you'll notice that you may see step 1, step 2, and it's missing half the middle. And then you'll see the ending result. Okay. Because I don't want them to be a DIY resource for people to potentially hurt themselves. Okay. I try to show you guys what I think as technicians, you guys will understand. And, that's where I try to go with my videos. And it's also a liability thing too. I don't want someone to get hurt. I don't want to explain to you how to use an oxyacetylene torch. This is how you set your regulators. This is how you light your torch. This is what, because I legally don't have the insurance that protects me as a person to show you guys all that information, because God forbid you didn't hear something correctly and you set something wrong and something caught on fire. I don't want the liability of that coming back on me. So that's another reason. It's just one of those things that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Okay. So I do have to limit some of the things that I show in my video, but I will definitely work on a video where I can teach you process of elimination and how to troubleshoot an electrical circuit. That one's one that I can safely do. Okay. So I will work on that. All right. Going to keep going down here, seeing what I'm missing, guys. What are my thoughts on drop-in replacements on refrigerant out there? Okay. I am probably not the best person to ask that. And that was asked by Mike 2959. And the reason why is because I honestly don't agree or use many of the drop-in refrigerant replacements. Personal preference. Do not use my word as everything. Okay. They work for some people. Working with my customers are okay with me using R22 refrigerant still, because they don't want to have to go through all the headaches and the problems of converting a system over to one of these drop-in refrigerants. So at this point in time, now I'm not saying I'll never use them in the future, but right now, I'm just using R22, 410A, 404, 134, and that's pretty much it. And R290, those are the only refrigerants I'm using at this point in time. And a lot of times that's my customers that are requesting that. I would deal with a lot of national chain restaurants, and I've brought up to their facilities departments, hey, do you want to try to save a couple bucks and start using these drop-in refrigerants? And most of the time they've all said no. They just rather me stick with the regular ones because they'll go ahead and replace the equipment versus doing any giant major repairs. Although there's some of them that I've made videos on where they probably should have replaced equipment and they didn't. But so I'm not the greatest person to talk about the drop-in retrofit refrigerants. They work for some people. There's a lot of disclaimers in the instructions that I don't appreciate and don't agree with. So that's why I tend not to use many of the drop-in refrigerants. But I'm not saying I'll never do it. If a customer told me that they wanted me to use a drop-in, then I would do it. And I've used them a few times in the past with not great results. The drop-in refrigerant that I used in the past was R427A. And it's not that the refrigerant didn't work. It's just that I didn't know all the details and all the information wasn't in front of me. I've said this before in a past video that I used R427A on a train Voyager package unit with a 3D, with a 10-ton 3D scroll in it. And we lost the compressor like 2 days later or a day later or something like that, because the refrigerant wasn't making it back to or the oil wasn't making it back to the compressor. Let me step back by saying that compressor had mineral oil in it. And on the R427A instructions, it said it worked okay with mineral oil systems, that you did not have to change the oil. Well, what I learned after the fact on that particular system is that it doesn't work very well with mineral oil. And the train compressors require that oil to come back with the refrigerant to lubricate I think it's the upper bearing on those 3D scroll compressors. And that thing didn't get its lubrication. And within a day, basically, that compressor seized. And it was a brand new compressor, and it was just a nightmare. So anyways, I digress on that one. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the drop-in refrigerants at this point in time. So, okay. Keep going down here. And also too, train manufacturing is very interesting. So they have some published documentation that says if the unit is under warranty, they will not approve any alternative refrigerants. But if the unit is out of warranty, they have some refrigerants that they will sell you. So come on, do the math there. So basically, train supply houses wants to sell you the drop-in refrigerants, but if it's under warranty, they won't warranty the equipment if you use it. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the manufacturers are not behind those drop-in refrigerants as of yet. So that's just another thing too. If I had a manufacturer that said they would warranty it if I used it, then I might be more okay with it. But if I have to eat the money like I did on that 10-ton compressor, I'm not going to be a happy camper. So okay. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name. It says, what's the best place to acquire an education for HVAC? Is there a specific school? Also, is it better to go to school first, or should you get some experience first as a helper? I honestly don't know where you are, whether or not you're in the United States or not. I would suggest that you check out your local community colleges or trade schools. The thing I like about the community colleges is that you can go do night school. You can take 1 or 2 classes without paying for everything up front. You can see if it looks interesting to you. And on top of that, you can try to get an apprentice job, or an apprenticeship with a company where as a helper. while you're going to school at nighttime. In my opinion, that's the way to go. Not knocking any of the trade schools, but I'm just saying the community college is cool because you can work during the day and you can go to school at night. I'm going to be honest with you, as an employer, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to get into the trade, but I have no experience, it's harder for me to hire them. Versus if they come to me and say, hey, I'm really interested in the trade. I've already enrolled in community college. I've been going for 2 semesters. I've got these classes behind me, and I'm really interested in starting out to make sure this is what I want to do and working as an apprentice or a helper. I would be more than willing to hire that person because they showed me drive. They showed me that they're interested in the trade. And not only are they interested, they actually have been applying themselves by going to school. And now they want to come in as a helper and learn on the job. I'm totally willing to teach someone. That's my methods, and that's the way I like to do it. So I'm not knocking the trade schools. A lot of times the trade schools, you can get subsidized education, different things. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do it. But I'm just a fan of the community colleges because you can go to school at night and still work during the day. Okay. Keep going down here. Just kind of get into these comments, guys. Okay. Keep going. I'm just looking through here, seeing what I'm missing, guys. Hello to everybody. Merry Christmas to those of you guys that are just coming in. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Okay. Podak 10, you asked why on Christmas I make a job video. That I make my videos, guys, usually in advance. So for instance, I've got 3 videos sitting scheduled for the next 3 uploads. So that's why I uploaded today and am doing this. And also because I missed the last live stream last week. So I wanted to get on here and do this. Okay. Keep going down here. See what I missed. Yeah, I really, really appreciate it, guys. If you hit the thumbs up button on the video, it does help me. Okay, let's go down here. Merry Christmas, Rick. Appreciate it. Adam, Mufich, how do I find new help? Good help? You keep getting burns? Yeah, I keep getting burned too. Guys, not to go off on a rant, but unfortunately right now in the trade, we have we're having a hard time. As if you guys probably don't already know, we are having a massive shortage of skilled workers. We've got an influx of new blood coming into the trade, which is good, but we've got a larger outgoing group of experienced tradespeople leaving. So, it's difficult right now to find people that want to work hard. The trades are not for everybody, but I will say that they are very, very rewarding if you work for the right company and you work for the right person and you do what you like. There's no sense in working for a place where it's just a 9-to-5 job. This is my opinion, guys. Okay. In my opinion is that, you shouldn't be doing this if it's just a job to you. Now, I'm not saying that you need to treat it like it's your own everything and you need to worship this job and everything, but I'm just saying if you're not interested in it, there's no point. So, but I think a lot of people, think that it's going to be an easy job and they jump right into it, and it's not easy when you really have to go home with headaches sometimes thinking about things and worrying about things, and so it's definitely an interesting time right now. So Freddie, you asked if anyone works in supermarket refrigeration. I don't work in supermarket refrigeration. There may be a few guys in this chat. I don't know how many of them will be doing supermarket because my chats are usually more restaurant and HVAC stuff. There's some people that you can reach out to on Facebook, see if anybody chimes in here, but Primetime does, it looks like. Yeah. But reach out to some of the Facebook groups that you can join, that you can talk with other like-minded people in the supermarket groups and different things like that. So Adam, right on. Okay. Keep going down here and seeing what I'm missing. Adam Woods says the trade can ruin your life, but it can be rewarding. Yes, the trade can ruin your life. And yes, it can be rewarding. It just depends on what you want to do. Okay. It can wear you out. Definitely. I've made a few videos on that. The summer times can be pretty brutal. But at the same time, if you learn to just take it as it is and try not to work too hard, and, it can be very rewarding too. Excuse me. All of a sudden my nose starts itching like crazy. Merry Christmas, Ulysses. Thanks for coming in the chat, bud. Okay. How's everybody doing? Ted, how you doing today, man? Yeah, that's right, Ted. More hours and less pay. Come on over. Um, okay, let me see what else I'm missing here in this thing. Okay. All right. So there is a lot of different people on YouTube. There's a lot of people that probably don't make the greatest videos. There's people that make great videos. Again, you can learn something from everybody, even the people that don't make great videos. You can learn what not to do. You can learn what to do. I make lots of mistakes in mine. So, call me whatever you want to call me. Um, all I can say is learn from my stuff, learn from what I try to tell you guys. I try to give you tips and advice on problems that I have had and on mistakes that I have made. I know that's a difficult thing because a lot of people don't want to uh, I don't know. A lot of people seem to have hesitation and they want to make mistakes and, don't want to listen to other people. But if you can listen to what all these other guys are saying, what I'm saying, what other people are saying, then you might be able to not make some of these mistakes and it might make your life go a little bit easier. So, okay. Prime time. Yes. Okay. So Prime time is asking about a video that I did on a late night walk-in freezer service call where I went out there and I had a evaporator coil that shorted out. The heater shorted against the solenoid valve wire. So let me step back. I had a service call. I went out there, found that the system was not running, the evaporator coil was not running, and that a I was not getting the correct voltage at the thermostat. So then I investigated, and what I found was that the solenoid valve wire coming from the temperature controller had shorted out against the defrost heater. The wire wrapped underneath the defrost heater and shorted out, and it just broke the wire clean off. For whatever reason, it didn't trip the breaker. Okay. At least I don't think it tripped the breaker. Anyways, so I repaired that wire, started the system back up. And when I started it back up, I came downstairs and all of a sudden refrigerant was spilling out all over the walk-in freezer box. Okay. Ran upstairs real quick, pumped the system down. I had not put my service gauges on it yet because I thought it was just going to be an electrical issue. Ran downstairs real quick, or ran upstairs, pumped the system down, shut it off, came downstairs, found out that at the same time, uh, a wire, I'm sorry, a heater hanger, which is like a little metal hanger that hangs on the evaporator coil, had shorted out against the defrost heater when that short happened. And it blew a hole in my evaporator coil too. But when it blew the hole in the evaporator coil, the solenoid valve had shut off, if that makes sense to you guys. So it only leaked out the refrigerant that was in the liquid line. So when I repaired the electrical short and turned the system back on, all of a sudden that solenoid valve opened back up and it started leaking refrigerant again. Go watch the video. It's an interesting one. Yes, I did end up changing that coil. And I've actually already had problems with that replacement coil too. I can't remember if I've made a video on it or not. I don't know, or maybe I haven't released it yet. But yeah, I've actually had problems with the replacement coil too, where it's been iced up because the customer keeps icing it up. But yes, I did replace that evaporator coil. So, all right, keep going in here real quick, seeing what I'm missing. Okay. Yeah, if you guys didn't see the Total Tech, I think you're talking about it, where Brian Orr made a contest where he was asking everybody to make a polite meme about Jim Bergman. Some of those were pretty funny. Yeah, guys, I didn't have to work today. Actually, we as a company took Christmas Eve off. So the on-call tech is on call, but he, knock on wood, hasn't had to do any calls yet today. So Christmas is a paid day, and then Christmas Eve, we usually just take the day off. It's not a paid holiday for us, but it's nice just to get the day off. So, all right. Anybody else? Okay, let me read this. Randy Labs, what do you like better, Chris, HVAC, or refrigeration? Randy, I like them both, to be honest with you, but I like refrigeration. Refrigeration is in my opinion, it's a little more. I like the troubleshooting that goes in with the refrigeration. I mean, not saying that HVAC doesn't have interesting troubleshooting too, but it does. But I like troubleshooting walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers. You know what I really, really like? One of my favorite parts of this trade is bending pipe, actually. doing installs, getting to pipe in walk-in coolers and freezers. I really like it when I get to do complex piping jobs, and I get to work with the tubing benders and do all kinds of complex bends. I enjoy that. I'm very um, I'm very anal when it comes to things, and OCD and different things, and I like to be able to use my skills, and I like to be able to see a finished job after I've done a bunch of bends and it look all clean and awesome, you know, and not look shitty. I'm very particular about the way that I like to do installs and different things. So I like doing installs, but then I love troubleshooting refrigeration. So all right, keep going through here. Right on, Guido. Appreciate it, man. Looking at the big picture. That's my motto, man. You know, always look at the big picture. Solve the problem, not the symptom. I'm always saying that, and I think that's really important, guys. So, all right, guys. Any other questions you want me to answer? If not, we're gonna probably end this one pretty early today. Let everybody get back to their normal days. Gennard, yeah, I was kind of afraid to say I like bending pipe, but I don't know if someone's gonna crucify me for that. But no, I love doing that. Paul, what do I feel about side jobs? Personally, I don't do side jobs very much. As a business owner, I'm not a fan of the technicians doing side jobs. I don't care what they do on their own time. But if they're wanting to use my tools and my vans and different things, that's kind of a gray area. I have let people in the past, if it's for their moms and dads and different things like that. I'm going to be honest with you. I can make more money. Even when I wasn't a business owner, I could make more money at work as opposed to doing side work. And if that makes sense to you, because side work just, it brings a whole bunch of things that you don't realize are problems. Like, for instance, what's the liability of you doing a side job? Yeah, most of the people can get away with a side job and not worry about liability. But what happens if you fall? What happens if you get hurt? Who's going to pay if you get hurt on the job on a side job? Workers' comp ain't going to pay for that. I mean, so how's that going to work? You know, that's one of the things that it never really made sense to me. Now, I'm not saying I don't help friends out. I will help friends out all day long. I will help my mom out. Most of the time, I don't really charge people unless it's like some giant thing. I might charge them for the parts and different things. It just depends. Okay. So I'm not a fan of side work myself. I'm not crucifying you if you do side work. It's more of a headache to me. And to be honest with you, we usually have plenty of work to do at our normal job. And I'm sure that we could get some overtime and different things as an employee and probably make more money as opposed to doing side work. So that's just my personal preference on it. So, Adam, go ahead, dude. That's fine. Guys, Adam's going to post his Facebook group link in here. So, go join his group. I'm cool with that. Guys, I don't mind if you guys want to talk about groups and different things. Just talk to me before, let me know. Okay, so that way we don't spam the whole group with stuff. But I know Adam, and it's all good if he wants to post something in here. It's cool. So thank you very much, Royal Winds. I really appreciate it. Okay, so it says, how much hack work from other techs do you see? Sorry if this has already been asked. I just jumped in. Royal, I see hack work like crazy. Most of my videos from the last couple months have been at a new restaurant that I took over, and some of the hack work, like go look at the Hvacr blue video. Oh my gosh, dude. Some of these things are just nuts. And then I took over that same restaurant chain this last summer, just before the summer, and the air conditioning stuff was ridiculous. I mean, it's good for me as a business owner, but it was just nuts, man. I see so much hack work. I try not to do that. I'd be interested to know, though, on the flip side, if someone took over one of my restaurants, how much crap they would talk about me. I'm not saying my shit don't stink, because it does. I'm just saying, like, would it be the same? Like, would they think that I'm just as big of a hack as the last guy that I thought was a hack? I'm always interested in thinking hearing what other people think about my work too. So, okay. On the Delfield electronic temperature controller used in the under counter, the fans run on 3 minutes and off 3 minutes when the compressor is not calling. Have you ever, Doug Brown? Okay. How can I say this without getting myself in trouble? Every single time. I am not a fan, guys. Okay, I do not advise you guys to do this, but I'm going to be honest with you right now. On the Delfield Danfoss digital controllers, the stupid fan, evaporator fan on and off thing, this is a reach-in cooler. This is not a freezer. They cycle the fan motors on and off based off of an algorithm that they have inside the clock. And inside the temperature controller. And I think it's the stupidest thing they ever did. And yes, I have done that. And I do that quite often. Okay, Doug. Yeah, definitely, dude. Hate that thing. I've even had the factory to tell me to do that. But I'm not advising you guys to do this. Okay. I do not advise you to go in and try to re-engineer boxes without talking to the factory first. But I have had the warranty department tell me, yeah, let's just go ahead and hardwire those temperature controllers so that the fans run. Now, I will say, very, very cautious. Don't ever do something without talking to the factory. And if it is an R290 system, do not even attempt to try to change anything about that system. If you're working on an R290 system, I highly, highly suggest that you always put in the factory parts. You always order them from the factory. Even when it comes down to electrical cords, you put in the factory parts. I'm not a fan of the R290 refrigerant units. I think that we're going to have some problems in the future. I work on them all day long. I'm not afraid to, but I think we're going to have some problems in the future. And I think a lot of fingers are going to be pointed if one of them ever catches on fire. So make sure that you have put all the factory parts back into that unit if you've ever worked on it, because you don't want those fingers being pointed at you. So, I am going to go ahead and remove that one. Okay. Have I ever used TrueTech Tools? TrueBack was thinking of getting it. It's like $600. And do I recommend triple evac? People at my company say it's a waste of time. Okay. Brian Orr just did, actually not Brian Orr, Jeremy Smith on the HVAC school website just did an interesting article about a triple evac. Yes, I have done triple evacs in the past, but again, I was always taught that they were effective. So it's an interesting article. I suggest you go over to HVACR school. And look up one of the most recent tech tips. Sign up for their daily tech tips. There's one where they just did triple evac, and it basically debunks the myth of how good a triple evac is. So interesting. No, I have not used the True Blue evacuation kit. I've thought about purchasing it, but I just haven't done it yet. So one of these days I'll pick it up and do a review. I definitely think it's going to be worth the money for sure. One of the things that I've read, and this is for Hidden Resolve, you put this on here. One of the things that I've read about the True Blue evacuation kit is that they come with predetermined length hoses, and that a lot of people have said if you order the longer hoses for the systems you're going to be working on. So for instance, I do evacuations on ice machines a lot, sitting on top of 1,400-pound bins that are 5-6 feet in the air. So I would probably custom order some longer hoses to work with the True Blue kit versus just using, a standard 4-foot hose or something like that. So just do some research on the equipment you're going to be working on. All right. Keep going down in here, seeing what I'm missing, guys. Yeah, Total Tech. Do as I say and not as I do. All right. Let me see what else this says. Ron Schumann, is there a way to tell if you have a bad TXV on a split 410A system if all you own is an S-Man 460 and a fluke pipe clamp? Yeah. You can diagnose the system properly. You would just have to, use your refrigeration techniques, and you could diagnose that TXV. I'm not going to explain that in this chat right now, but yeah, you could definitely do it. You got to use a pressure temperature chart or use the PT chart that's built into the S-Mans and your pipe clamps for sure. You could diagnose that. Now, yeah, anyways, if you have more questions about that, send me an email. I don't want to really take up this whole chat addressing that one. So Mike Reed, yes, R290 has been used in the field for years. I just worry about it in the small refrigeration stuff in the restaurants right now because there's a lot of people that don't follow proper refrigeration practices working on it right now. So I just worry about some mistakes. So, all right. How do I feel about Zoom lock? I honestly have not had the opportunity to try Zoom lock. That question was asked asked by Die for Truth. I have not had the opportunity to use Zoom lock, but I will say that it has been explained to me that Zoom lock does not work on old refrigeration pipe. So let's say, for instance, that you've got an old um, uh, piece of pipe that's kind of pitted out and stuff. You can't put a Zoom lock on there, I've been told, and get it to seal properly. Whereas you could braze that on and solve the problem. So I think Zoom lock is more meant for new installations. And I don't think Zoom lock works super great on soft copper, but I am not a complete expert on that. So don't take my word as the only word. Okay. But because soft copper is not perfectly round like hard drawn ACR is. So I've been told through the grapevine and read that the Zoom lock does not quite seal as good on soft copper, especially if it's not completely round. So again, do your own research on that one. I don't want to knock Zoom lock at all. So definitely think it would be great for mini splits and VRV systems for sure. So okay, keep going here. See what else. Work on double stack machine, keeps going into harvest. Factory told you to change the sensors, water, cold draft, same problem. I don't know if that's a Hoshizaki machine, Jeffrey, or if that's a cold draft machine. Send me an email on that. For those of you guys that want to send me emails, it's hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Send me an email. I'll try to get to it, guys, if you got questions. I may not have the answers. I might be able to direct you to people that might better have an answer for you. Thank you very much, Daniel Williams. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to all you guys that have said that to me already. Okay. Yeah, open merchandisers are a pain in the ass, especially when you have to deal with air curtains and customers don't understand how air curtains work. And they like to stack up their equipment in the merchandisers so that way the air curtain doesn't get the proper coverage and keep that. Yeah, that's just a nightmare. Open merchandisers are a pain. Adam, yeah, R290 is very known, in the UK. That's a very important fact to understand. That what's interesting is we are so technologically advanced in the United States, but yet when it comes to things like our environmental concerns and different things, when it comes to refrigerants and different stuff, we are way behind on the, it has a lot to do with our administrations and different things and legal problems and different stuff. But I'm not saying that I hate the fact that we're behind on some of that stuff, because the longer that I can postpone the having to deal with some of these pain in the ass requirements, the better. So keep going down here, guys. What pressures do I normally see on a Delfield prep cooler 404A cap tube? I mean, it's hard to say the exact pressures. I would say I'm going to give you rules of thumb that you're typically going to be somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 degrees. Your saturation temperature is going to be over your ambient temperature, 25 to 30 degrees, your liquid saturation temperature. And then your vapor saturation temperature is typically going to be 20 to 25 degrees under the box temp. But those are just rules of thumb. That'll get you in the ballpark, and then you can kind of go from there. I would always lean on the manufacturers. One of the things about the reach-ins is that each one of the manufacturers has their own methods that they design them at, and they don't necessarily follow proper refrigeration practices when it comes to designing their equipment. So they, for instance, a Delfield cap tube system running 404A might not run the exact same as a true cap tube system running 404A, because they all kind of design their TDs on their evaporators a little bit different. So you always want to lean on the manufacturers. You can usually use rules of thumb to get you in the ballpark, but you got to be cautious about that stuff. So, let me keep going down through here. Can I shed some light on outdoor condensing unit, TXV, and heat pump? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to really go into that right now, bud. You can send me an email and we can talk about it a little bit more, and I can get some more context about what you're asking. Okay, keep going. Right on, Paul. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, definitely. Best practices. Adam Wood points out the best practices is to cut out everything when you're changing, especially the dryer, when you're changing a components on a R290 system. So the whole point of cutting out a dryer is so that way when you, sorry, my nose is driving me nuts right now. So when you're working on a liquid line filter dryer on any system, the proper way, it's not always convenient or possible to do this, but the proper way to change a liquid line filter dryer is actually to cut the filter dryer out, because the fear is that when you heat up the dryer, you could potentially release moisture into the system out of the dryer. But at the same time, there's another aspect of it too. When you're working on an R290 system, any components that you unsweat or unsolder, unbraze from the system potentially could have liquid refrigerant or vapor refrigerant, which is flammable, R290, built up into them. So the more components you can cut out of a system on an R290 system, the better. And it's also very important that you purge your system before you work on it. So let's say you're changing a compressor. I have a video on it where I wasn't able to cut the compressor out, and I showed what happens. Even after I purged the system with nitrogen, there was still flammable vapor built up into the system. And you saw that when I was unbrazing something, is that the flammable vapor ignited even after I purged the entire system with nitrogen. So it's always possible that there's still bubbles of R290 built up in the oil and different things. So always want to cut out as many components as you possibly can to be safe. So, okay. Okay, let me keep going down here. Yes, Chris, Alisi, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. You asked me if I left the differential in the minimum position on the temperature controller. And yes, on the Penn or the Johnson A19 temperature controllers, when I install those are an aftermarket universal replacement air sensing temperature controller. When I install those, I usually leave the differential at the minimum position on those. Okay. That's just my personal preference. So if you were going to use that sensing bulb and embed it in the evaporator coil, then maybe you would adjust the differential to offset it a little bit. So, okay. Any rules of thumb for cold plate static rails? Total Tech, that's a difficult one. I'm going to be honest with you on Delfield. Delfield's cold plates or pan chillers. They're a static pan chiller, meaning that there's no evaporator fan motor per se. It's just suction lines basically ran inside the metal right behind where the pans sit. Delfield actually wants you, when you're diagnosing one of those systems, what they tell you to do is to isolate the top section. So that means turn off the top section and let just the bottom run. Get your refrigerant pressures to where they recommend with just the bottom running. Then turn the top back on, let it come down to temperature, and basically adjust the superheat or check the superheat on the expansion valve. They really don't give you, and most manufacturers will do this that have a static cold rail. They really won't tell you what the refrigerant pressure should be per se, because it's kind of difficult to know exactly what those pressures should be on that system. I mean, rules of thumb, I would still say that you're probably going to be your liquid saturation temperature is probably going to be 20 to 25 degrees over ambient, but even your liquid saturation temperature drops significantly with just the cold rail running. So do an experiment the next time you work on one of those systems that's working. Put your service gauges on it if you can. Check the pressures with everything running. Check the pressures with just the top running, and then check the pressures with just the bottom running. And you'll notice that your liquid saturation temperature drops significantly with just the top section running. So yeah, cold rails are kind of tricky to diagnose. So especially on the Delfield ones, those are the ones that I work on the most. You'll usually adjust your refrigerant charge with just the bottom running, then turn on the top, and then check your superheat on your expansion valve. Always, if you ever can, if you have the option, always want to weigh in the factory charge. That's the best way to go about it. But sometimes that's not practical. So, okay. Yeah, Chris, I really don't care for the White Rogers. I guess it's more or less a preference thing. I've just always used the Penn temperature controllers. I'm going to be honest with you. If I can, I'm going to take out a mechanical Penn temperature controller, and I'm going to put in a Ronco ETC 140-1000. That's the NEMA 4X outdoor enclosure. So it's kind of water resistant. And it has the tabs on the outside of the temperature controller, so you don't have to take it apart to mount it to the wall. I prefer that one as my digital. That's my go-to digital control if I'm not putting the factory ones back in, if I'm working on a walk-in or something like that. So, okay. Primetime, you had a 100-foot produce case, open case, go out on 3 sections, 1 compressor in the basement. The prong on the compressor blew up. And that's what I'm afraid of on a, and again, I know I'm looking at worst case scenario, but I'm afraid of an R290 system having a terminal vent and then the refrigerant igniting when the terminal vents. I'm assuming that's what you mean. The compressor blew up, the prong on the compressor, so it had a terminal vent. Is that what you mean, Primetime? Okay, so DW, do you see any issue with removing a condensate loop on a Delfield prep cooler other than the charge being less? Um, I'm going to preface this by saying you always want to go back in with the factory components, but yes, I have removed hot gas condensate heaters before. Yeah, your charge would just be a little bit off. I'll try to put those back in. Usually I'll just bend them up myself with a 1/4 inch bender, but yeah, I've taken them out. Yeah, not too much to worry about. So with those, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Always try to go back with the factory components. So Sterling, thank you very much, man. Okay. Oh, that's very dangerous. As Sterling Archer said, someone was unbrazing a dryer and the copper pipe blew. Yeah, that could be very dangerous. So if you can, but again, it's not practical on the little reach-in refrigerators to unbraze all the time. So sometimes, I mean, or to cut all the time. Sometimes you got to unbraze. You just got to do what you got to do. Bird 203 asks what the hardest job I've ever done. That's a hard one, man. I'll have to think about that one, Bird. Yeah, I can't really come up with that one off the top of my head right now. But I've had definitely some very stressful, difficult jobs. Let me think about that one and I'll address that, man. Do me a favor. If you get the opportunity, Bird, send me an email at hvacrvideos@gmail.com and ask me that same question. And I'll try to remember to do that in another live stream where I could think about it and come up with the most difficult, stressful, frustrating job I've ever done. That'll be a good topic for another live stream. Okay, guys. I'm probably, yeah, Total Tech. They can be kind of stressful. I'm probably going to end this, guys, unless you got any more big questions you want to bring up. I've got a family Christmas Eve dinner to go to. So, yeah, the prime time, the mom and pop place with the leaky lines. That was a big job. That was a pretty stressful one. That one was, I made a video on that, and it was a small mom and pop that I do that they had a refrigerant leak underground. I was trying to be as money conscious with the guy as possible because he's kind of a business friend, I guess you should say. We've known him for a very long time, and he doesn't have a lot of disposable income when it comes to that place. So it was a very interesting, stressful one where we went in there just to change an evaporator coil. We changed the evap coil. It just one thing led to another and ended up being an underground refrigerant leak and an underground pipe. We had to repipe, do a bunch of work. Ended up being quite expensive for him, and that was even with us, like, you know, really taking it easy on him. So Total Tech, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. Okay, guys, so I think we're going to end this. Guys, again, thank you very much for taking the time to watch my videos. I really appreciate it. I'm going to reiterate, like I did in the beginning of this video, I am not everything, okay? I make lots of mistakes. Thank you very much, Sterling. What are those ad things? Oh, that are popping up? Wagner Heating and Air. That is what we call, I'm assuming you're talking about the super chat where it's that Total Tech just did. And what that is Total Tech is actually donating $6. You know, he's donating to me essentially. So it's called a super chat. It's something that YouTube uses. So I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. It's called yeah. So it's just a way that he can donate. Down at the bottom of your chat screen, you can donate to it or whatever. You got to set it up. I really appreciate it, but that's not why I do these, guys. So I really appreciate it though. Okay. Yeah, I'll try not to drink too much. But yeah, I just want to kind of preface by saying that I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos. I am not the end all be all. I do not know everything. I do make mistakes, and I'll admit them straight up. I do accept criticism. If you guys see something that you really think I need to improve, I really would appreciate you let me know. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It'd be cool if you're not being a dick in the chat about it. But I mean, I don't care if you put it in the chat. Just say, hey, man, I think you should really work on this. If you really think it's something important that I need to work on, send me an email. I really, really honestly do want to grow as a technician. Every day I'm looking for a new way to improve what I do. So if you guys see something I could be doing better or you have advice, give it to me. I really, really am open to that and really would appreciate that. So, yeah. So I would appreciate if you guys send me information. Okay. No, I do not work on generators. I'm sorry. So, um, but yeah, so really appreciate it, guys. Have a Merry Christmas, and I will see you guys next week, Monday, 5 o'clock p.m. Okay. Again, send me emails if you guys got questions. Okay.